When's the last time that you felt truly rested? Not just caught up on sleep, but actually at peace. Today we're going to be talking about rest. That's a very general topic, but just sort of the different ways that we can get rest. My name is Josh, and this is Anthony. We're from It's the Good Life, your practical guide to young adulting. And I think something that Anthony and I both personally have talked about a lot is rest. I think it's something that is very much in the pursuit of to be countercultural. But one thing I wanted to kind of start off with is a fun fact about sleep deprivation.
Start off on a high note.
According to let's start with positivity. 73% of college students regularly experience sleep deprivation. It's a big number.
Is that just not getting enough sleep? Not enough than you need, or
sleep deprivation? Like you're just getting under 7 hours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that was me for sure.
Yeah,
I was part of that statistic.
Like include me in that 1%.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all nursing students.
Yeah, for real.
There.
Well, and another thing too is it's interesting is young adults who sleep less than 7 hours have double the rate of anxiety symptoms.
Ooh.
So it's like so if you include that, right?
Yeah.
73% of college students have double the likelihood of having anxiety because of their sleep deprivation. Right?
Yeah, college is rough. But I think it's also safe to say, like, even for people that are done with college, you know, it's lack of sleep is a big thing too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it goes into sort of like that culture. And I think there's this quote that often comes up. There's a research I found. It says, if I'm not tired, I'm not trying hard enough. Right? Like, and that's sort of a cultural theme, right?
Is
like,
that
what do you think about that?
Is that kind of saying like you have to tire yourself out by the end of the day?
No, I think it's more so that the tiredness is evidence of if I've worked hard enough. Like I think it's actually the opposite, right? So like not to say, I mean, I think the opposite could also be true, right? Like I need to work myself until I'm tired, but I also think the inverse is also true, where it's like if I'm not tired, then I still need to keep working. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like for example, right? Like this kind of goes back way back to episode 2 when we talked about burnout, right? Like I think that at least for me, like I've always been a person who has just worked my butt off, like been in school at the same time. And it's like, even if I'm doing that and I'm not tired, like I'll say yes to hanging out with somebody. Where it's like, and then after that, when I'm tired, I'm like, okay, now I'm good. Like tiredness is some sort of metric for being
I guess like, well, why is like rest important? Because I mean, is that something that, I mean, obviously, yes, we need sleep to function.
Yeah.
But I think some people also think about how they can best use their time. And I think the big problem that a lot of people have, including myself, is I'd rather trade sleep to do something a little more productive.
Yeah.
And sometimes that I can justify that and say that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know, like I want to go and hang out with a friend, but because I'm going to do that, it's going to cost me a few hours of sleep. You know, like I can stay up late.
Well, but that's different than productivity, I think, as a means of pursuing productivity. So like one of the main ideas I also found is that we idolize productivity and we undervalue rest. Because it's different. That's different though than what you're talking about, because productivity is like, I need to be busy for the sake of being busy, versus what you're saying is, there's an intentional opportunity for me to do something that I want to prioritize at the sacrifice of my rest in that moment. But there's something to be said about doing that in a one-time thing and something to do that all the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right? So it's like if your friend's like, hey, I want to hang out every single night, you're like, I can't do that every night. But tonight, for sure.
Yeah.
Or maybe if a friend's having a hard moment and you want to be there for them and it's post-work and you're exhausted, but you see that there's a need to be there for them, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm trying to get at more so is like the extensive, unregulated productivity or burnout that you just continue to pursue for the sake of pursuing it. So going back to kind of what you're saying about why do we need rest? obviously from the practical standpoint, your body needs to sleep. Like if you don't sleep, then there's genuine physiological changes that happen when you don't sleep. I also think that, kind of talking about I don't know if there's going to be coherency amongst our bonus episodes, but but we also talked about minimalism, and sort of the mentality of that is like we need to have emotional and mental rest so that we don't get overcluttered in our mind and our emotional capacity.
Yeah, I think rest is a huge part of the conversation.
Yeah.
When it comes to anyone that's working, and like I think it comes down to this. It's the competition of time, and like we said, we often like kind of trade it for things that we think are more important, maybe in a short-term way. But I forget, I was doing a little research on sleep the other day, because I was feeling more of a lack of sleep. And I was doing some, and it was something like, if you're up for 24 hours straight, then these are the bad side effects that you're going to experience. And if you're up for 36 hours straight, like it just gets exponentially worse.
Yeah, like it's linear.
Yeah,
it's like
it made this comparison of like if you're driving with like 24 hours, being up for 24 hours, it's like synonymous to being like X drunk, like having this much alcohol. And I'm like, that kind of does affect your brain then.
Yeah.
You are affected in the way you live. And I think that's so related to our ability to live a good life. I think how we sleep and how we rest is a big factor into how we, like, our ability to have energy, our ability to impact others when we are awake.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's the important part.
Yeah. One thing that you have said to me many, many a times, this guy's the model for me for minimalism and for rest, I'll say. He won't claim that, but I'm just saying. But I think one thing that you said, especially in the context, oh man, this is gonna be a conversation, is resting when you're working out.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
So one thing that he's told me, and I've really tried to live this mantra-wise, is you have to rest hard as much as you work hard. Right?
Yeah.
Like if you are working hard in the gym, if you're working hard at work, if you're working hard in your relationships, you should also value and work as hard to rest, just as much as you are working, right? And it's like, no, I know there's some things to be said about this. Yeah. So like just kind of on that mentality, right? Of talking about why we rest, like it's so essential, and it's so interesting, like the whole relationship between not having sleep for like 24 hours not being equivalent to being like a drunk driver. It's like that. I think that's a direct decision of your decision making, right? Like when you are exhausted, like you can't make good decisions.
Yeah,
because you just, like when you're drunk, it's impaired. Like your thinking and your cognitive ability is impaired because of your lack of sleep.
Yeah, and I think it's practical too, because I mean, you might be listening or watching this and being like, I don't stay up for 24 hours straight, I don't do night shifts. But I also I think I will also challenge those that are thinking that to also think about, well, how's the quality of your sleep, right? Like, yeah, maybe you're in bed for 7 hours, 8 hours, but how much of that are you really resting? Or is your brain occupied? Are you going through insomnia?
Yeah.
Are you thinking about different things, up multiple times a night?
Yeah.
I'm not just saying to pee, but like to just to wake up and be like, okay, this, what are you decluttering that part so that you can sleep well? Like, how well is your sleep? And I think that's practical for anyone. There's nights that I've slept X amount of hours, but still didn't feel that great.
Well, I think that definitely leads well into sort of the next conversation, which is sleep hygiene, right? But before I get into that, I do want to preface sleep hygiene as sort of how do we routinely, consistently prioritize and get good rest, right? And so some practical, but before I get into some practical ones I found in research, what are some practical sleep hygiene practices that you have?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think there's for sure it's a big conversation. But I think for me, it's like the fast and easy way to explain it for me is the 3-2-1 rule.
Uh-huh.
So for me, 3 hours before bed, I really try to not eat anything. That's kind of the rule of thumb I have.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2 hours before bed, I tend to push that one a little bit, but I try not to drink anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because a big part of you like sleeping well is being able to be more so on an empty stomach, and carbs and things that you eat like has a way of affecting the way we sleep and process, and there's time that we need to digest as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of gets away, clears your stomach up for the night. And
Mm-hmm.
then 1 hour before bed is probably the hardest one,
Mm-hmm.
but to keep phones and like blue light away.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes your computer, that includes TV.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, like what that's looked like is not having the TV in my room anymore, because I know that it just makes it easier for me to watch if it's there. And so it's really creating an environment where it's conducive to you falling asleep quickly. And part of that is also like blackout curtains, making sure the room is dark, making sure the room is a lot colder. Something you could do is, take warm showers, allow your body to kind of cool down naturally. And then, yeah, just pretty much those are the rule of thumbs I like to make. And then I like to do something that kind of tires me out if I'm not sleepy. Because it is hard to sleep when you're not tired,
Yeah.
And so that hasn't been the case recently because it's been a pretty tiring season. But I tend to hit the hay and just like knock out. It doesn't take much. But for me, sometimes it's just reading a book or journaling at the end of my day. I feel like those are probably the cornerstones that I like to frame my bedtime
routine.
And I do take that seriously. I think
Yeah.
in some ways it's I mean, we talk about morning routines, but your nighttime routine is also up there in importance.
Yeah. It's interesting that parallel between the morning routine, nighttime routine. Because I think the morning routine is preparing you to work, right? But like, how interesting how we don't prioritize the nighttime routine as much as the morning routine.
Yeah.
When the rest is just as important.
Yeah.
Right.
You're priming your body to rest for your nighttime routine.
Yes.
And then you're priming the rest of your day to be productive in your morning routine. So
exactly.
It's really the end, the beginning and the end of it. It's like the bookmark of that chapter, if you will.
Yeah.
Of that day.
Yeah.
What ways do you apply sleep hygiene to your life? Are you pretty much like following those same rules, or are you kind of just like,
no?
I know you're a student, so maybe that looks different. I'm speaking from the standpoint of like working as a full-time so
well, it's I would say that my sleep hygiene has been, if I were to give it like a grade, I would say it's like like on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being I'm sleeping the best I've ever slept in my life, 0 being I haven't slept well at all. I'm sleeping little. I'm not even sleeping at all. I'm probably like a 3. Maybe a 4, like at best.
Okay.
I think I think more so I'm on the upward trend in terms of improving my sleep hygiene, but it's been really poor for probably the past like 8 months.
Is that due to school or
it's primarily due to school.
Okay.
And I think it's also primarily due to just a lack of discipline regarding sleep hygiene. And I think that a lot of that sort of upward trend of it improving has been related to working out and sort of the mentality that that you've shared with me of working hard and resting hard, and I think a lot of it also came from working out, actually, which is very interesting that you mentioned that, because I've found that a lot of maybe some of the reasons why I couldn't sleep wasn't necessarily because I wasn't performing those routines, but it was because my body wasn't tired. My body wasn't fatigued. It wasn't ready to sleep. Maybe even my mind wasn't ready to sleep. And it's interesting how connected your mind and your body are when it comes to rest. Like when your mind is active, sometimes it won't let your body rest, right? And I think that's the value, and I wanted to kind of touch on that about journaling, right? Is like kind of like we talked about in our minimalism episode, if it's posted before this. But when you journal, you are clearing up your mental clutter, right? That's what we've established. We established in that episode. And I think sometimes when we bring that baggage into the sleeping environment, our mind says, "Hey, body, I still have a lot to think about. I don't want to sleep yet."
Yeah.
Right? And so it'll keep you awake and awake and awake, and you'll find it 1 hour go by, 2 hour go by, and then you're up until 4 or 5 a.m.
Yeah, you're staring at the clock.
You're staring at the clock, and
Yeah,
like, why
it's like-
can't I sleep? But because it's your mind is still running and rolling. And so I feel like working out has been a great gift because A, that's just physically fatiguing in a good way, but B, I've found that in sort of exercising some of that excess stress, it actually releases some of that mental disorder, mental clutter, and allows me to it actually calms both my mental and my physical.
Yeah. Well, I mean, working out is a whole nother probably episode topic.
Yeah.
That's yeah. I mean, for me, obviously you guys know it's as like a bodybuilder. That's a bread and butter for me. I love it so much. But I think that goes into that conversation of being able to. So something I've been doing as it relates to what you talked about is brain dumping, is what I like to call it.
Okay.
And this brain dumping session happens usually in the beginning of my day and the end of the day.
Okay.
And it's kind of more so integrated in my morning routine. But what it looks like is essentially sitting at my desk after I wake up for the morning routine and just literally writing everything on my mind. Because, I mean, if you're like me, there's constant things that go through your head. Sometimes they're negative. Sometimes they're things that you're thinking about that are maybe insecurities or thoughts or things that pop, or even ideas and inspirations or video things and creativity ideas. Like a lot of those you want to record and obviously be able to keep, but then others you want to just dump so that like, I think our brain has this way of when we write it down or when we're able to speak it or to say it or to release it out of our brain, it's almost like we've been able to download or unload it.
Yeah.
Maybe drop off that baggage, if you will.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens at the end of the day. I'll brain dump as well with just literally writing, like word vomiting on my journal.
Yeah.
Is what I would like to call it.
Yeah.
It's just everything on my mind and things I need to do tomorrow, and just like so that I can go to sleep knowing that everything in my mind has been dropped down,
recorded,
into whatever this is. Yeah.
cemented.
And I can worry about it tomorrow.
Right.
But I think part of what, as we talk about rest, I think that topic earlier that you brought up is this idea of like, rest is not just, I mean, you mentioned it's working out, but it's not just like sleep.
Yeah.
I think it begs the question of like, what things do you find rest in that might not be sleep?
Yeah.
And for me, that's, working out. But I think the deeper question of it, when I would like to, ask the listeners as well, is I think it's also what fulfills you, what gives you meaning in life. Because, I definitely believe that you should be doing something outside of work, outside of school that fulfills you. And you should have some kind of outlet,
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for you, like, what are ways that you find rest outside of, I mean, maybe on top of working out, but what are other ways you find rest besides just sleeping? If you are.
Yeah, no, it's actually really interesting. I think that recently, it's actually been watching like childhood movies, which is like such a really interesting sort of, I don't want to say hobby, but just sort of adventure I've gone on. Like one of the examples is I actually recently watched Winnie the Pooh for the first time.
Okay.
Yeah,
like the
original, the original 1972 version of Winnie the Pooh. And I think, you could argue, okay, well, you're consuming media, like that may not be restful, but there was something that was so healing and something so simple about just watching a movie intended for kids. Like I don't even have to think, like it's just, I just exist and experience it. And it's just happy. Like there's nothing, there's like some sad moments, but it's more sentimental than it is sad. And so it's been such a gift, I think, to find fulfillment in something like that. And I think that's something that I kind of want to prompt back towards you is sort of this idea, kind of going back to that initial point that I made about productivity, right? Like that we prioritize productivity over rest. But this idea that rest is productivity. And I think that there's sometimes that's at least for me, and I was going to get into this before about like sleep
Yeah.
hygiene, is like that often is like my excuse for not going to sleep. It's like I have to study for this exam, so I'd rather study than go
Yeah.
to sleep. But then I wake up and I'm like, I literally forgot everything.
Yeah,
that I
like you probably
studied.
could have spent that time sleeping.
I probably could have spent
Yeah.
that time sleeping and then studied in the morning. And probably been way more productive and
Yeah.
actually effective because my brain, kind of like we talked about at the beginning, would have been a lot more cognitively there. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
versus like running on half sleep and trying to squish in 5 more pages of my study guide.
That's
it's like,
good.
you know,
Yeah. I think a personal example of that for me, I mean, on top of nursing school, it's
Yeah.
like the epitome, I think, of like the balance between
Yeah.
like, should you sleep or should you study?
Yeah.
You know?
Mhm.
Like, which one should you choose? Because, well, I think this is what it is. There's always more to study. Like, you could always do more.
You can always do more.
But I
It's
think
true.
what I realize is that that same work, that same study it's gonna be there for you tomorrow.
Yeah, it's true.
It's not like at the end of tonight, like that material is gonna be taken away from you and you can't do it tomorrow.
It's true.
And I think like as much as we love to do things all at once in one sitting and do things like there's part of that delayed gratification almost, if you will, which is weird to talk about when it comes to studying because it's
Yeah.
maybe not maybe it does gratify us to be done with that topic and wrap it up in a
Yeah.
bow. But that idea that we can save some for tomorrow, we can continue and pick up where we left off.
Yeah.
And I think in my own line of work with sleep obviously being a shortage of a resource as a night shift nurse, as someone who works during nights from like 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. like there's never a shortage of work to do. There's always another podcast episode to update or, event to go to or, something to work on. You can always go to the gym. You can always climb. You can always do all this stuff.
Yeah.
But I think the question is not about whether or not you should or shouldn't do it, but it's about whether or not like that time that you have right now is better spent doing it or is it better spent resting? Like what's going to be more productive for you? And you brought up the idea of like, I think almost restful productivity. Maybe,
Yeah. Or more of a mentality that when you're resting, you are being productive. Like your body needs to rest. And so when you're resting, you're doing exactly what your body intends to. Kind of a funny side note. I was watching this comedic bit where this guy was talking about like, what do you think aliens think about sleeping?
Oh.
Right? And he's like, imagine trying to explain to an alien like when we sleep. It's like, yeah, I just go into a room and I sit there and do nothing for 8 hours.
Yeah.
It's like it just prompts me to think like that's sometimes even the mentality that we still have is like, why would I just go and sleep when I could be doing X, Y, Z, right? But the reality is, like you said, the work will still be there when you wake up.
Yeah.
And I think the mentality that I often struggle with in nursing schools is the night before an exam, right? Which will be tomorrow night for me. Speaking of practicality. But I think that's like almost always I run into the debate with myself of it's like maybe 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And my exam's like the next morning. I'm like, I could study for another hour or I can go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I get to the next hour. It's like 11 o'clock. I could study for another hour or I could go to sleep. If I just go over this one more topic one more time, I think it'll be like that the debate keeps happening over and over, right? But I found that I actually do better when I'm more rested. So it's like, even if I feel like not as prepared on some topics over others, if I prioritize my sleep over trying to fit and stuff that extra topic into my studying the night before, it doesn't even stick.
Yeah.
And so it's like, it just kind of begs the question, right? And I think that this is kind of a good segue into like spiritual and emotional rest, which is kind of what we were already talking about before. I'd kind of beg that back to you. Like, what are some ways that you find rest that isn't sleeping?
Yeah. It's so interesting, the word rest, because it's almost like it's hard for me to consider like doing hard things as rest when I consider, working out as restful,
Yeah.
right? But then
Yeah,
like
exactly.
but
I
then
know
it's
exactly what you
weird
mean.
because like I'm at the gym, if you've seen me train, like it's pushing till failure, like
That's
that's
crazy.
it's like weird to call that restful,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
then I think maybe the word I would use is fulfilling
Yeah.
in a different way.
Hmm.
And you can't spell fulfill with fill. And I think part of that is that it fills you up,
Yeah.
right? What's fulfilling is filling.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and it's that idea, I think, I just thought about this analogy of like how we, for instance, we've talked about, computers and stuff like that in the past, in our last bonus episode. But the idea that like we have to, like your laptop right there has a battery percentage.
Hmm.
And if I were to look at it right now, like it would be less than 100 because you've been using it for a while, right?
Yeah.
But it's like so like what will happen to your laptop when we keep using it and it continues to drain down? You
Yeah.
know, eventually it's going to go down to zero.
Yeah.
And I think I can ask you like, are you going to still be able to use your laptop? And the answer would be no, because it's empty.
But you know what's
Right.
really interesting about that? Not to cut you off, is that you can still run everything at 1%.
You can still run at 1%, but you can't run at zero,
Yes.
right? But then I think the practical aspect to draw out that analogy is like how many of us are running at 1%? Just because you can, it doesn't mean that you should, And I think there's that deeper idea that like sometimes I think there is a certain battery percentage that we're running at. And the people like we talk about this idea of like having a social battery. Like, oh, like, I'm reaching the end of my social battery today. Like I'm
Yeah.
getting tired.
Yeah.
But I think in similar ways, like our computers need to go to sleep too, right? Like how and they're machines. Like if you
Yeah.
think about it,
Yeah.
right? And if they don't, then they're always plugged in, right? If you think about like a desktop. So it's you either way, like you're having to draw energy, you're having to draw power from something. And that's I think tying back into the idea of filling,
Yeah.
where it relates to fulfillment,
Yeah.
is that you need to have that some kind of energy to fill you up,
Yeah.
to restore that charge,
Yeah.
so that you can be operating at
Optimal
above
capacity.
Yeah, and for batteries, this is kind of interesting too. Is like batteries function best between like 40 and 80%.
Yeah.
Wait, like how's that relate to our lives, right?
You know, an interesting thing, about battery life related to charge?
Yeah, like optimizing charging.
Yeah,
Yeah.
optimizing charging, which you kind of talked about. One thing that I think that everything that has some sort of charge or some sort of gas is often more effective in retaining its capacity to use whatever charge or gas it has when it's charged completely. Right?
Yeah.
So it's like I think that that's something also interesting too, is like ion batteries, lithium batteries actually lose their capacity to hold charge if they're only charged halfway. Right? So it's like if you have a laptop and you are at 0% or 1% and you charge it to 50%, it's going to start running out quicker.
Talking about battery hygiene now.
Actually, that's going to be the title of this episode, is battery hygiene. Imagine someone just, yeah. So it's like, I think that is actually how we're affected, how when we rest, how that affects us on the long term, right? So it's like, okay, I recognize that I need rest, and I only sleep for maybe 7 hours half the time, or 8 hours half the time instead of fully the time. Then even though I'm technically resting really well half the time, I'm still not going to be able to be functioning at full capacity at some point. So it's like, yeah, you're hitting that. If we're using the analogy of the computer, right? Like you're hitting instead of being at like 80% most of the time, like you're going to be like 40% some of the time, 80% some of the time. So it's like it's still not going to be effective resting.
Yeah, I mean, like charging and being able to fill yourself up with things, I think is like more important than we often realize.
Yeah.
Like I just know, for instance, people in my life that like work really hard and like just are like my parents. I think they were so focused on caring for us as their kids, and
Mm-hmm.
like bringing us up in a family where we had everything that we needed, like financially, and like both my parents were just focused on work, that it was like when it came to resting and to like having time for themselves, like it's weird because I almost didn't know what to do with it. But it's interesting because that idea tells you that you actually have to know like what to do at that time if you have it. If you don't have maybe these habits or these kind of patterns in your life of rest and instilled into it, built into it, maybe if you will, then you're just gonna not really know how to use that time. You're not really gonna know how to cherish it.
Yeah, not know how to value it.
Yeah.
What are some bad rest hygiene practices, routines that you have that you're trying to work on?
Oh, that's an interesting angle to
I'll,
take.
I'll go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Doom scrolling is a struggle for me.
Okay, that's
for
where we're
sure.
going.
Yeah.
Do you catch yourself though? Like,
so much.
I'm doing it and then I need to stop. Or
So for me, it's kind of hilarious because it's like there's an effort being made, but I'm completely bypassing it. You know, like app limits,
yes,
percentages.
Yeah,
I have them.
It's kind of useless because you could just sit. You could just hit extend.
I literally have that on all of my like social media apps, and it works for all of them except for Instagram for me. Yeah,
Okay.
working in that I don't bypass them.
I see.
I see them like okay, I gotta stop.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that's the one that I struggle with the most, especially when it comes to going to bed, because it's like it's sort of this cultural phenomenon that we think that doom scrolling gives us rest when it doesn't, you know? And it's like the last thing at the end of the day, you've had a long day, you're totally burnt out, and you think, okay, I'm going to doom scroll. And there's something in your mind that tells you, I'm going to get more energy from doing this than I will from not.
Yeah.
You know, and then you find yourself doom scrolling until 1 a.m. and you're like, what did I just do? You know, what did I even gain from that? You know, I do that all the time, the same cycle.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think it's the accessibility of entertainment.
Yeah.
And when it's right there in your front right pocket, it's so easy to reach for.
Yeah.
Instead of maybe talking to somebody around you.
Yeah.
You know, instead of having a good conversation
Or
with
reading
a
a
friend.
book,
Or reading
or
a book.
journaling.
Or, you know, calling an old friend that you haven't talked to in a while. So I think in terms of, bad habits of rest that I've gone into, I think I can think of some that I used to really struggle with. I think doom scrolling was one, but catching myself, you know, when I'm a few scrolls down and realizing that, oh, I'm getting distracted, you know?
Yeah.
I think one of mine's is multitasking. I guess like real quick on multitasking, I think I've always heard like your brain can't actually multitask. It's just something.
That too.
It's just something that we call because we like to be able to say that we can do more than one thing at once.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's just our brain switching from one to another
Really quickly.
constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, which isn't always the best for focus and deep work. And I think that idea really helped when it came to nursing school. Like I was studying and not like putting everything aside and just working on one thing at a time and getting that done and then working on the next thing. But for me, like multitasking was such a big barrier because in my head I thought, you know, me doing two things at once is going to get me 2 times the results as opposed to doing one thing first and then the other.
Yeah.
But I found shortly that wasn't the case, you know.
Yeah.
I ran into a lot more trouble with that.
Like, it's interesting how it's sort of the goal is efficiency, right? And multitasking, by theory, should be more efficient because you're doing multiple things at the same time, but it's actually less efficient because you're unable to actually spread your capacity effectively between different things.
Yeah.
One thing that I found that has actually been helpful to be productive, but also counter to being restful is to-do lists for me. Because I think the mentality about a to-do list, like you said, related to multitasking, is I can do one thing at a time, and I have a tracker for how productive I'm being based on what I'm marking off. And to-do lists are a whole different conversation. But in terms of productivity, I've found that when I don't complete my to-do list, I don't. It's harder for me to give myself permission to rest. where I tell myself, man, I didn't check mark off this last thing. And I marking it out, I'm like, oh man, I could have just studied those 5 more pages of the study guide, and then I would be able to rest. You know,
Yeah. Well, what's your relationship with to-dos now? Like,
to-do lists.
are you having to finish like, I think a few ideas come to mind. Are you making that list shorter for you on a daily basis? Are you essentially having like a huge list where you're like, okay, I need to cross off at least 3 today before I sleep? Like, how do you draw the boundaries and the lines? Because like I said, you can go down that list infinitely,
Right.
And
You
always
can
have
just keep
something.
writing lists and lists and lists
Yeah.
of whatever you want to do. I mean, I think that the to-do list when I think you would have one who prompted me for a to-do list as
Maybe.
well.
I don't know.
Maybe. I don't know. I think it was you or someone, but I think the initial mentality of it was exactly what it should be is, you know, make the to-do list inherently is a boundary, saying I will do these things, and when I'm done, I'm done. You know, right? So I think that when I was initially making them, they were minimal because it was like, okay, well, I'll do these as long as I get these things done, then I had a productive day, right? But I think as I got a little bit more eager, let's say ambitious, that's the word I was looking for. My to-do list got longer and longer and more ambitious and more descriptive and more in depth, and projects would be on my to-do list.
Oh, like
right?
a whole project?
Like a whole 15-page paper would be on my to-do list for one day. You know, and obviously you can't write that whole paper in one day. So I would be inevitably A, disappointed, and B, not feel like I should be resting because it's not completed, right? But I think the switch came probably like around a year or two ago, like when sort of the minimalism thing came in too, where I had to be more realistic with my goals, right? So instead of writing the 15-page paper, it's like start paper, write at least 2 pages.
Like, so breaking it down.
More
approachable things.
Right, more approachable, more feasible steps that ultimately lead to that greater outcome, but is not necessarily doing it all in one time. And so I think that at least for me at the time, the to-do, at least at this point in time, my to-do lists are a lot more efficient of like, I can only do this. And once I complete that, and then I write a subcategory on mine. So I have like my to-do list and I say, if time, do these things.
Oh, so that's really in depth.
Right?
Yeah.
Because then it's like, if I don't finish if time, then there's no pressure for that.
So do you ever go above and beyond and do more than you set out to do that day?
And it's interesting because that's often the case, which is actually really good because I'll set 3 tasks. I absolutely need to do these things, and then if time, do 10 other things, right? And then and from a productive standpoint, I don't know if this is like getting into in depth. I always feel like I'm being productive because I always complete the to-do list that I set for myself, and then everything else is like, I'm being extra productive because I also worked out, I meal prepped, I this, you know. It's like, and another thing too is like, I found that also with to-do lists, not to get too in depth with this, is putting things on there that I'm doing already. Right? Brush my teeth, even if like brush my teeth, oh, you should brush your teeth, right? But it's like brush my teeth, go to school, complete class, like things that I'm already doing, I put on my to-do list anyways.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Just as a way to check it off?
Just as a means of not convincing myself, but affirming for myself that I am being productive by default, right? Yeah. Even as sort of kind of an extension of what we were talking about before of like doing restful things that aren't necessarily sleep. Like I put, like you said on your calendar, I put my rest activities on my to-do list, right? Journal on my to-do list. And it's not even a sense of like journal, I marked off the journal, but it's like, this is a part of my priority task for today is to rest. Yeah. Watch Winnie the Pooh again for the 5th time. You know, like
that's interesting though, because I think a lot of people look at to-do lists as a way of a list of things that they don't want to do.
Oh, but that's true.
Right? And I think like the way you've framed it and built it into your life is it includes things that you already are doing, but also things that you can look forward to doing. And I think that changes your approach and attitude towards to-do lists because all of a sudden you're engaged with it in such a way that you are like, I want to get that done. It's not a negative relationship about, oh, like I finally have to get to the first part of this list and I still have 2 more things to do. No, I'm excited. I'm excited. Like after these assignments or something, I get to watch Winnie the Pooh. Like, let's go.
And it's like on the to-do list.
And it's something that I think that's such a cool idea of like being able to break it down and like have small wins almost, but also create an aspect of like a reward system. Yeah. Or I guess the idea of like gamifying your life.
Yes, it is. And that's precisely what it's become. And I think that like even recording the podcast is on my to-do list, right? Where it's like, I know I was going to do it. I enjoy it. It's fun. And it's social time with people that I love and care for. And it's like, when I get home, it's like, ding, like I did it. Yeah. I think just kind of as we're moving towards the conclusion of this, I think that one sort of concluding topic I want to touch on is like spiritual and emotional rest. So I think for those of you who are familiar with Scripture, especially like the creation narrative, God models rest, right? Like there was a day dedicated to rest. And in the Christian and Jewish tradition, Sabbath is a part of the routine. It's part of spiritual life is to rest, right? And so I think I just kind of want to cover just not necessarily to say this is what you should do or this is like what the general practice could be, but I think it would be really great to sort of uncover what a Sabbath looks like for us. So just as you're thinking about yours, I don't know if you want to go first or me, but like what does a Sabbath look like for you?
Yeah, I'll start it off. Man, Sabbath has got to be definitely one of the hardest spiritual disciplines to incorporate for myself. I think it's because it really challenges what does rest really look like. Yeah. And I'm really challenged by, for me, it's like really being able to step away from work for an entire 24 hours.
Sounds like difficult.
It's really hard for me. I think as someone who is always tend to be very antsy, like tend to be very action driven and wanting to do. I find it so hard to just sit still. But I find that the best things in life, the hardest things in life are the ones worth pursuing. And I think rest for me, it's like because I'm not good at it and because it's something that I, vulnerably, something that I want to work on is exactly what I need to do on a Sabbath. That exact thing that I'm not good at. And
it's the irony.
It's the irony of it. Yeah, and it's like, okay, like putting myself into the uncomfortable situation of like literally taking a nap, of like just pulling out, just like playing my guitar, which I haven't been able to find as much time for recently, or just sitting down and maybe watching a show. Like for me, throughout the week, it almost feels like a sin to like just sit and like to watch, something when like in my head, I'm like, oh, you could be creating a video instead of watching one. But I think I've found, as much as you've probably experienced, is that like watching things gives you inspiration too. It pours into you so that you can pour back out. And it's this process of like, what does it look like for me to spend 24 hours just fulfilling, right? Like filling myself up with things and making sure that the next day I'm at 100% in terms of that battery analogy, and knowing that I can go the rest of the week strong, and knowing that I always have that one day in that week to fill back up. And I know for sure that I'm going to be able to be fully rejuvenated, even though whether that's 2 days away or a few days away. I think I've found that the Sabbath is the day that I can kind of look forward to almost, of like set aside time to really have a reason. And I don't want to call it like an excuse to do nothing, but almost like a dedicated time to work on the things that I don't give as much time to, which is like rest and intention in that way.
Yeah. But that goes back into what we talked about, where rest is productive. Yeah. Right? So like, it's interesting that you say, I think that's a common phrase that's used. It's like, why would I spend my time doing nothing when I could do something? But you're actually doing something. Yeah. It just doesn't look like what we maybe have an image of what something is,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that something is rest.
Mm.
And that something could be, like you said, guitar playing. It could be watching a TV show. It could be going to a cafe. It could be visiting a park. Like there's, I guess that's something that we didn't exactly expand on, is that resting in the non-sleep way, you are still doing stuff, but it's just not stuff that that really takes away. It's giving. It's fulfilling, right?
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, I think it's. I think I was talking to a friend that is a nurse as well, and he tells me he spends like the first day off. He calls it. He's just like, I just rot for the day. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, does that mean you sleep? Are you like, are you just standing there and like looking in the blank space?
Yeah.
And he's like, just I. He said this. These are his words. He's like, yeah, I'm on my phone and doom scroll, and then I am like sleeping, right? And
I rot.
I think I do challenge that because I think his words, not mine. I think that is considered a little bit of rotting.
Yeah.
I think there would be other ways that would arguably be a little bit more fulfilling and for restful, if you will. But I think that goes to show like not everything is restful. Not everything is going to fill you up.
Well, there's like productive and unproductive rest. I think is kind of like, which is, if we're just gonna like expand on that a little bit more, right? Like you could doom scroll for 10 hours and not be rested, but like also be doing nothing technically, or you can be, doing something else like biking, visiting a park, like whatever. Like an example I like to say for myself, and this is probably one of the most restful days I've had. The last really restful, like explicitly restful day that I had, was I went to the Getty. I think I told you, we talked about this.
This was a while back. Actually.
This is a while back. Yeah, I mean, I've had restful days since then, but it was like one of the most like restful, fulfilling days I've had in a long time. Like when it comes to individually resting.
I think you had a pretty crazy epiphany too that day.
Yeah. It was sort of, it made me realize like on a multitude of levels how you can this is a whole conversation even about like the solo episode. I wish I mentioned this during that episode too. But like how I think that a lot of people are in desperate need of a pause, right? Let's just take a full step away for a complete day, and that may not necessarily just mean like mentally or emotionally, but literally physically. Like, so the Getty is, relatively speaking, location wise, probably a whiles away of a drive.
Yeah.
So there's like nothing familiar close by, right? Like it's a completely foreign environment, at least geographically, relatively speaking. And I found that being there, if you're not familiar, the Getty is a museum in Los Angeles that is just well known for all arts and sculptures and just landscaping and everything. And I probably spent a total of like 6 hours walking through that museum. I didn't say a single word to anybody. Not rudely, but like, because there was no one to talk to. It was just me, right?
Yeah.
It also took me an hour to get there. And it took me an hour and a half to get back. But in taking that time to just be, like I found that I was able to get so much. And I guess sometimes when you're so busy, when you have so much mental clutter, you don't realize how much you can talk with yourself and engage with yourself, right? And I think that that's so restful to be like, where am I at right now? Where am I feeling good about where I am? Am I not feeling good about where I am? If I'm not feeling about good where I am, what's going on with that? Like when you are busy, I find it, at least for myself, it's so easy to talk and listen to other people, but sometimes we don't really get the chance to listen to ourselves.
Wow, well, I want to spend some time there actually. Interestingly, we have time for this. I think we got about 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
I think that's such an interesting way you paint it. The words you use, I think, were engage with yourself.
Yeah.
I think a follow-up question I would have for you is like, why do we tend to see, and I'm sure we do because we I think most people are almost maybe uncomfortable with time with themselves.
Yeah.
But like you said, like just like you're engaging with somebody else that may be physically apart from you, like the way I'm engaging with you, why are people pulled away or more comfortable maybe with engaging, for instance, with you than I would be with engaging with myself? Like, why is that such a hard barrier that people tend to have?
Yeah.
Like that conversation with their own self-voice, their own self-talk, those things that they probably haven't talked about with themselves.
Yeah. That's a great question. That's a great question. I like to think about what we talked about a couple episodes ago and a little bit earlier on in our relationship series, which is like our inner child, right? My mom's talked about this a lot, and I think it's really true is that we have, each of us, sometimes we say we're adults, right? But really we're grown children, right? Like, and
Yeah.
that child, just as much as any other child, needs to be comforted and talked to and engaged with, right? But that's also uncomfortable because that child is vulnerable and sort of at the whim of your life, its life circumstances, and that's vastly uncomfortable to engage with. And for me, just sort of given life circumstances and nursing school, I've had so much busyness to distract me from engaging with that child that's inside me, right? And so that day that I spent at the Getty and just the drive, sort of in silence, like I didn't even listen to music on the way there or way back, just pure silence. There was space for that inner child to appear and show itself. And I think the initial response I had to engaging with that more vulnerable version of me is, this is really hard. And it's hard because the emotions are hard. It's hard because it's real and it's me. It's only me. There's nothing, there's no filter, there's no other, like when I'm talking with you about something hard, it's your thing, right? It's your baggage and I'm just partnering with you to engage with that.
Interesting, yeah.
But when it's me and my baggage, the only person I'm engaging with is myself, right? And so I'm engaging with my own baggage, right? But I will say, I think a caveat to that, and I want to hear your point too, is I didn't have to do that alone, truly alone, right? I think that the greatest part of it being, it was a Sabbath day, to put a label on it, was I was able to reconnect with the Lord. And he reconnected me with that inner child. Yeah, what's your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I remember actually having that conversation with you
Afterwards,
and you
Yeah.
were telling me like this is. I think you were telling me that it was really cool to hear it from you, like
Yeah.
firsthand experience.
Yeah.
You were like, this is like, I finally I think realized like what it's like to really enjoy spending time with yourself.
yes.
I think those were your words.
Yeah, that was verbatim what I said. You're
And
totally right.
I just remember being like really happy for you because
Yeah.
it's like not a lot of people get to that point of being so comfortable alone, let alone for 6 hours. But you probably spent way more time alone just driving there and back, and probably stuck in traffic on the way back.
Yeah.
But the engagement, I think another thing I said also, which connects a little bit to that faith side of it, is that we're never really truly alone.
Yeah.
Like,
For sure.
we're either around people or, people, and when we're alone, like, God is still with us.
Yes.
And I think that's really what it comes down to. This idea of rest is like, for me, a lot of that time looks like spending time doing things alone, because a lot of what it looks like throughout my week is spending time with others, whether it's patients, whether it's coworkers or friends. And that shortage of time spent with myself, I realize is shortage of time that I get to spend with God.
Woo.
And, it's like, no wonder I feel so distant, so tired, so worn out. Because he says, come to me, all you who are weary, and I'll give you rest, for my burden is light, right? Matthew 11:28. And I think there's so much value in just spending that time alone, or quote unquote alone, not really alone, because God is with you. And that idea of processing what rest looks like when you're with somebody else. and then bringing that out when you're coming out of Sabbath, I think, is
Yeah.
another conversation of like you feeling fulfilled, and then you're going back into the world, so to
Yeah.
speak,
Yeah.
of encountering relationships like this and engaging in conversation. You're so much you're so much more able to give, I think, from a place of being filled.
Yeah. And a place of being realigned with yourself.
Yeah.
And realigned with the Lord, right? Because like when you are giving of yourself so often, I've and this is sort of like my concluding thoughts, right? Is like when you give so much of yourself, I have found, and I don't know about your experience, but when I give and empty myself so much and get exhausted, right? I actually I'm giving away parts of myself, and when I'm left in that sort of exhausted phase, I actually find that there's really nothing left for me to have for myself. Not necessarily for myself in a selfish way, but like there's nothing left of me for anyone, including me and including the Lord, right?
Yeah.
But like when we take that time to focus on rest and sort of gaining back and realigning with what God's identity is for us, we actually are able to give better of ourselves to others. So it's like, I think that this is sort of a concluding for me, right? And this goes full circle talking about like working out and whatnot, is like, you're actually able to work harder when you rest harder,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
But if you don't, so it's like you can go into the rest, you can go into the relationships, you can go into the friendships, you can go into your work stronger when you rest better.
Yeah. It's so I love that. That's a good closing thought, because I think like everyone talks about working hard, but no one talks about resting hard.
Yeah.
And that's such I think it's like the underdog in the conversation oftentimes, but people, I think, neglect that. That's so important. Such a big part of having energy to do things that you want to do.
Totally.
How would you summarize this episode? What kind of key points do you draw out from the conversation that we've had today?
Yeah. I mean, definitely key takeaway is against the sort of cultural narrative about rest. Rest is productive, whether that's sleeping or doing something that is just fulfilling, right? I think that God designed us to rest. He modeled that in creation. He modeled that through his son. And I think that we too are also called, whether you are spiritual or not, to sleep. It's in our design. And so when it comes to deciding how to rest, whether that's promoting your own sleep hygiene, or just finding ways that you can find rest outside of sleep, I think it's really important to first acknowledge that you need rest. I think that that's the first step is acknowledging, actually, I'm tired, I'm weary. I actually need to make a choice to start investing time and energy into how I rest. And so I think it's first an important thing to acknowledge that. And then secondly, find someone who you can partner with to rest, learn to rest with. I think Anthony and I both in seasons of life and our own turmoil and own busyness, remind each other about how to rest. And so I think having someone that you can partner with, have an accountability relationship with, and choosing how to rest, I think is equally as important as making a decision to pursue that too.
Yeah, I'll let you close off in prayer, but I think the final thought I have, and maybe more so phrased in a reflective question for you guys as listeners and people that are watching this, is, like, how often are we asking ourselves, when I know when Josh and I come together, I've noticed that our conversation and the questions that we come together with has went from, what things are you working on this week, to how have you been resting this week? And that I think that shows that the change in attitude towards like what's actually more important,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, I know Josh is working hard. I know he's doing all these things, but I think the more important part that I want to know is how's your soul then? How are you resting in response to doing all this work that I know you're already doing, but are you actually filling yourself back up in those ways of with the Spirit, in your faith?
Come on. Let's go to the Lord. Jesus, just thank you so much that we can rest in you. I just pray for anyone who's listening to this podcast, if they are feeling weary, heavy, burdened, just feeling taxed and by just the weight of their life and their schedule and their circumstances and their responsibilities. Lord, I just pray that as you've done for me, as you've done for Anthony, and just the ways that you continue to do, that they can just rediscover what it means to rest, what it means to genuinely rest, not only in you and in terms of sleeping, but just in terms of doing things that are fulfilling and battery charging, as we've talked about. Lord, I just thank you for the opportunities that we have to continue to discuss and share you in these conversations, the podcast. Just as we close off this first season, Lord, we just thank you for anyone who is listening to this, that they continue to engage with our conversations and just continue to lift you up in all the future episodes we have. We thank this in your son's name. Amen.
Man.
All right, that is going to be bonus episode talking about rest. If you haven't checked out our other bonus episode about minimalism, check that out as well. We just appreciate all the support that you guys continue to have for us. We've always appreciate if you like and subscribe and just share this with people that you feel like will also meet. But if you have any other thoughts or feedback, you're always welcome to give us that as well. But yeah, we'll see you in the next one. All right.